point, Patrick Star isn't just a lovable idiot. He's a walking crime spree in a pair of purple shorts, and somehow he keeps getting away with it. In these 10 episodes, I'll prove that Patrick isn't just a simpleton, he's a menace to society. And this 10th episode is pretty mild compared to the sus stuff that goes on at the end of this video. In Yours, Mine, and Mine, the episode starts with SpongeBob and Patrick doing what they do best, indulging in the kind of toy that might make a kid's eyes light up but leaves most adults scratching their heads. But anywho, this is Bikini Bottom, where even the mundane becomes Delulu. So Patrick is at the Krusty Krab and orders a kid's meal, never mind the fact that he hasn't a cent to pay for it. So you know what? SpongeBob steps in and pays for the meal, and Patrick agrees to share it. But Patrick ends up gobbling up the whole thing himself. It gets even more ridiculous when he demands his money back because he didn't get a toy with the meal. Hello, brah, do you not remember that SpongeBob paid for your food? Now you're out here being a Karen. Just admit you're broke and stop ruining everyone's day. Anyway, Mr. Krabs gets involved and gives Patrick and SpongeBob their toy, the Patty Pal. The toy in question, a burger-themed action figure, and nothing fancy either. It's literally just a burger with plastic straw limbs along with a squiggly smiley face made out of pickles and ketchup. Now, SpongeBob, ever the optimist, is ready to split the toy's glory down the middle. But as soon as Patrick gets his starfish mitts on the toy, that plan goes straight down the drain like yesterday's Krabby Patty. Patrick's immediate claim to the toy turns their heartfelt gesture of friendship into a masterclass in selfishness. SpongeBob is full of his characteristic enthusiasm, practically bursting with joy at the idea of playing with his best friend. Patrick, however, is in full-blown mine mode. It's less about sharing and more about hoarding, and SpongeBob's good intentions can walk the plank for all Patrick cares. Patrick's refusal to share isn't just a minor misstep, it teeters on the brink of downright criminal. SpongeBob shelled out the cash for this prized possession, so in theory, he's a co-owner. But in the world of Patrick Star, ownership is a flexible concept. Patrick's possessiveness isn't just a character flaw, it's a full-blown display of greed and entitlement. If Bikini Bottom had a small claims court, SpongeBob would have a solid case for claiming his share. And let's be honest, if this toy obsession was happening on dry land, I bet Patrick would be that guy getting escorted out of a Toys R Us by mall security. But wait, it doesn't stop there. Patrick doesn't just keep the toy, he treats it as if it's a sacred relic, a birthright even. He's oblivious to SpongeBob's mounting frustration, steamrolling over his friend's feelings like a bulldozer on a jellyfish field. Anybody else getting Gollum vibes over here? This feels weirdly reminiscent of that deranged guy with the ring, except this isn't a quest for ultimate power, but a childish obsession with a burger. The stakes are decidedly lower, but the emotional drama feels eerily similar. By the episode's end, after a heated tug-of-war with SpongeBob over this Patty Pal toy, Patrick snaps and declares, "If I can't have it, no one can!" And how does he resolve this? By swallowing the entire toy in one gulp right in front of SpongeBob. Cue the waterworks as SpongeBob starts bawling like he's just witnessed a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions. Mr. Krabs comes out, likely drawn by the sound of emotional breakdowns and money going straight down the gullet, his favorite combo, and finds SpongeBob and Patrick in a full-blown meltdown over a toy. Mr. Krabs, being the ever-pragmatic businessman, shuts down their bickering by reminding them that they should be ashamed for letting a toy destroy their friendship. Classic Krabs, making life lessons all about keeping things from hitting rock bottom, especially when it comes to profits. But of course, this is Bikini Bottom, and we can't end things on a normal note. To smooth things over, Mr. Krabs lets them both have their own Patty Pal toy, but there's a catch. They have to pay for it. Patrick, never one to back down from a challenge, says he'll cover it. Problem solved, right? Wrong. In classic Patrick fashion, he pulls out SpongeBob's wallet and tries to pay with his friend's money. SpongeBob, horrified, points out the obvious. Patrick, that's my wallet? Patrick, unfazed by this blatant wallet heist, hits back with the ultimate life lesson. Haven't you you learned anything about sharing? And that's how the episode closes, with Patrick completely oblivious to the irony of his logic, and SpongeBob left wondering if there's any hope for this friendship or his finances. But the damage has been done. Patrick's display of greed and disregard raises unsettling questions about the nature of their friendship. Is he really SpongeBob's friend, or just a toy-grabbing opportunist with a knack for taking advantage of SpongeBob's good nature? If Bikini Bottom had any sense, Patrick would be in a holding cell faster than you can say, "That's not how you treat your best friend." But alas, it's another day under the sea, and once again, Patrick gets away with it, for now. And that's just the beginning of his offenses. Sitting at number 9 on our list of Patrick's most egregious crimes is the card. In this gem of an episode, Patrick's disregard for valuable property reaches new and spectacular lows, sort of like his questionable fashion sense. So SpongeBob is on a mission to find a rare trading card after being told about it by the store clerk. He forks out the money for the first pack, opens it up, and what do you know? No special Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy card. So he keeps buying pack after pack, each time failing in his attempt to nab this card. It's so bad that he's bought almost every pack in the store except the last one because my guy has completely run out of money. Now, Patrick finally steps in and buys the last pack, and guess what? Patrick stumbles upon the rare Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy trading card. According to SpongeBob and the store clerk, this special trading card is worth more than all the Krabby Patties in the world. That's a lot of Krabby Patties. In the world of Bikini Bottom, it's like finding a golden ticket to Willy Wonka's factory. Yet, how does Patrick treat this priceless piece of cardboard? He handles it with all the reverence of an old sandwich he discovered wedged between his couch cushions. The first thing he does with the thing is pick his teeth clean with it like it's a toothpick and not a valuable piece of merchandise. SpongeBob tries to explain the card's importance and insists that Patrick handle it with the utmost care. Determined to protect the card at all costs, SpongeBob follows Patrick home like a bodyguard with a priceless treasure. Things start off promising when Patrick, noticing SpongeBob's obsession with the card, offers to let him keep it. But because this is Patrick, there's a catch. He wants to hang on to it just for the evening. SpongeBob, against his better judgment, agrees, and thus begins the card's descent into chaos. SpongeBob's attempts to protect the card from Patrick's bumbling clutches are nothing short of heroic. First, Patrick uses the card to wedge open his rock, because why use a key when you have a valuable collectible? Then, in the ultimate display of recklessness, he decides the card doubles as a grill scraper. Yep, after a good scrubbing, it catches on fire. Obviously, that was gonna happen when you put Patrick and a rare shiny item together. SpongeBob watches in horror as his precious card teeters on the brink of destruction, but it only gets worse. Patrick whips up dinner and naturally uses the card as a plate, letting it get completely drenched in melted cheese. This is a typical case of gross negligence where Patrick's cavalier attitude puts the card in jeopardy every time he touches it. By the time sundown rolls around, Patrick finally returns what's left of the card to SpongeBob, and in one last dramatic twist, it explodes into a cloud of dust. SpongeBob, understandably devastated, breaks down into tears, explaining that the card is now extinct. Patrick, ever the optimist, tries to console him with the idea that maybe he can get another one someday. But SpongeBob drops the real bombshell to this idiot starfish. He bought all of the packs in the store except the last one, meaning there's not a single card left in all of Bikini Bottom until the new shipment arrives. SpongeBob's disappointment is as thick as the Krabby Patty secret sauce. It's a moment that underscores not just the value of the card, but the depth of Patrick's negligence. Patrick's behavior in this episode isn't just a harmless quirk, it's an indication of how recklessness can lead to serious consequences. It's like if a madman was given a grenade instead of a toy, except in Patrick's case, it's a rare trading card and the explosion is metaphorical. So, while Bikini Bottom might not have the right jail to throw Patrick into, his actions in the card clearly illustrate a pattern of negligence that would make anyone question his suitability for community trust. And if SpongeBob's attempts to safeguard the card are any indication, it's clear that Patrick's careless ways might just be his ticket to a place where the only thing he'll be handling is his own jail cell. If you think this episode was bad, the next one on our list shows Patrick's negligence skyrocket to jaw-dropping proportions. Welcome to number 8, Pet Sitter Pat, where we get to see Patrick star in his very own How Not to Care for Pets tutorial. SpongeBob decides to take a well-deserved break, leaving Gary in the hands of our resident starfish. It's a choice SpongeBob SpongeBob might come to regret faster than you can say meow. Patrick's pet-sitting skills are about as reliable as a screen door on a submarine. The moment SpongeBob leaves, Patrick's idea of pet care involves a series of catastrophes that makes herding anchovies look organized in comparison. From neglecting to feed Gary to forgetting to provide basic comforts, Patrick's approach to pet sitting is non-existent, to say the least. Patrick's neglect doesn't stop at mere forgetfulness. No. He actively mistreats Gary with a flair that could only be described as nasty. Gary's new bedroom is an abandoned sock, and his playtime consists of Patrick's attempts to turn him into a space cadet with a makeshift rocket. It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Painful to witness, but you just can't look away. The episode really hits home when you see Gary in a state of pure distress and SpongeBob ends up having to call a vet. Harsh. From hunger to discomfort, Gary's plight under Patrick's care is a classic case of animal neglect. Patrick's obliviousness to Gary's needs is as glaring as a neon sign that says, "I have no idea what I'm doing." His actions could easily be seen as animal abuse, or at the very least, gross negligence. It's a pet-sitting disaster on par with leaving a toddler in charge of a candy store. What's particularly amusing, and also alarming, is Patrick's complete lack of understanding about the situation. While Gary is clearly suffering, Patrick's carefree attitude and laughable attempts at pet care only make things worse. It's like watching someone trying to put out a fire with gasoline. The more Patrick tries to help, the worse it gets. So if you're wondering whether Patrick's pet-sitting methods could land him in hot water, look no further than this episode. In the grand scheme of Bikini Bottom, Patrick's pet-sitting escapades could definitely be seen as a textbook example of what not to do when caring for pets. I'm pretty sure SpongeBob could sue him for this because this is straight-up animal abuse. Sitting at number 7, Stuck in the Ringer, the episode where Patrick's twisted ideas, or maybe lack thereof, get SpongeBob quite literally squished in a ringer. SpongeBob is going on about his morning routine. He just popped out of the shower, nearly slipped on a bar of soap, the usual. Anyway, he's super proud of himself for managing to miss this bar of soap hanging out on the ground that he doesn't notice the rubber duck that flies through the bathroom window and lands on the floor. So of course he slips on the duck, falls and slips on the soap, which then lands him in the ringer. Why he has this in his bathroom is still a mystery, but hey, this is SpongeBob we're dealing with. Enter Patrick, our goofy and disaster-prone starfish, who asks SpongeBob if he's seen his rubber duck. So off the bat, the whole reason SpongeBob's jammed in this ringer thing is because of Patrick's stupid toy. And Patrick just keeps waffling. He doesn't even stop to think, hey dang, it's my fault my buddy over here is stuck. My bad. Nah, SpongeBob has to interrupt Patrick's happy little reunion with his ducky to ask him for help. Instead of calling for help or thinking logically, Patrick barely listens to SpongeBob and says he has the solution. Get this, Patrick's idea to help SpongeBob get out of this sticky situation by getting him more stuck. He pulls out the forever glue hidden in his skin? He just ripped his skin open like a jacket. I think I need to wash out my eyes after seeing that. Yikes. The result, SpongeBob gets wedged and glued in place more thoroughly than a Krabby Patty under a boulder. It's like watching a circus act where the clown just keeps making everything worse. But it's not just SpongeBob's physical suffering that's on display. His emotional anguish is equally palpable. As Patrick continues his inept rescue attempts, SpongeBob's distress skyrockets. He's stretched like a rubber band and twisted like a pretzel while Patrick, blissfully oblivious, cheerfully clatters about, completely missing the fact that his actions are causing severe harm. Patrick's actions here could easily be categorized as reckless endangerment at its finest. He's not merely putting SpongeBob in a tough spot, he's actively escalating the situation with each clumsy attempt to help. It's as if Patrick attended a crash course titled How to Turn a Simple Problem into a Catastrophe 101, and he's applying those lessons with gusto. What's even more baffling is Patrick's complete lack of remorse or understanding. As SpongeBob's plight worsens, Patrick remains cheerfully ignorant, completely failing to grasp the gravity of the situation. His nonchalance in the face of SpongeBob's suffering adds a layer of absurdity to the whole fiasco, making it clear that Patrick's version of empathy is as warped as SpongeBob's contorted form in that ringer. In the end, Patrick almost ruins SpongeBob's life because he's handicapped by the ringer. It's a miracle crying so much manages to free the silly sponge. I'm telling you guys, we're looking at an insane psychopath, and this next episode is a perfect example of why Patrick's behavior could warrant more serious consequences than a simple apology. Number 6. Smooth Jazz at Bikini Bottom, where Patrick proves once again that if there's a way to mess up something great, he will find it. In this episode, SpongeBob and Squidward are living the dream. They've got tickets to see their jazz idol, Kelpie G, in concert. This isn't just any concert, it's the musical event of the year for SpongeBob, akin to finding the last Krabby Patty in the fridge after a long day. But of course, leave it to Patrick to turn this dream into a nightmare. So first off, Patrick eats the tickets. Way to go, Patrick. I don't know how you thought that was a snack. This is a running trend, it seems. After eventually winning tickets, Squidward and SpongeBob get backstage passes to meet their idol in person. Everything is going great. The jazz is smooth, the vibes are high, and the pair are having the time of their lives. Then Patrick arrives, searching for nachos. And Patrick's grand entrance to the concert is nothing short of catastrophic. From the moment Patrick arrives, it's like a tornado has hit a serene library. He somehow manages to eat Squidward's backstage pass, so SpongeBob kindly offers his to Squidward, only for Patrick to scarf that down too. But the backstage pass drama is just beginning. Patrick's got nachos on the brain, and nothing, not even Kelpie G's smooth, jazzy performance, will stop him from interrupting the concert to announce his cravings. He grabs the mic and demands nachos in front of the whole crowd like it's a karaoke night gone horribly wrong. Kelpie G, understandably, stops playing and the crowd is left in stunned silence. Patrick's bold food order quickly backfires when the guards come for him, so he does what any logical person would do. He jumps off the stage and gets carried away by adoring fans like some kind of nacho-craving rock star. Meanwhile, SpongeBob and Squidward try to sneak away from the scene of the crime, but the guards catch them and force them back to their seats. Except, surprise, their seats have already been taken by someone else. Squidward, on the verge of a total meltdown, yells at the seat stealers, causing Kelpie G to stop playing again. Naturally, the guards have had enough and kick both SpongeBob and Squidward out of the concert. Patrick's lack of restraint doesn't just stop at disruption. His reckless behavior directly leads to physical damage and a complete breakdown of the event's ambiance. The concert, which was supposed to be a sophisticated evening of music, becomes a riotous mess that makes a rock concert look like a quiet tea party. It's not just about the public disruption. Patrick's behavior could be considered criminal, illustrating a profound lack of respect for public events. His consistent ability to turn something wonderful into a disaster showcases why the authorities might want to consider a padded cell for him. After all, if they're quick to imprison Mrs. Puff for less, Patrick's frequent and intense public disturbances could warrant the same, maybe even more severe consequences. It's a miracle Bikini Bottom hasn't formed a mob to deal with him yet. Restraining SpongeBob, number 5, is an episode that's about as comfortable as a porcupine in a balloon factory. This time, Squidward's had enough of SpongeBob's relentless idiocy and decides to get a restraining order against him. Squidward's dream of peace and quiet is about to come true, or so he thinks. And this is where Patrick comes in, whose grasp of legal procedures is as firm as a plankton's chum, which is to say, not very firm at all. Wait, why do I know this? I think I watched too many cartoons. The restraining order is intended to create a personal bubble for Squidward, a bubble he wants to inflate to cosmic proportions. But as we all know, where Patrick's involved, things don't exactly go according to plan. Ever. Patrick, with his usual blend of cluelessness and enthusiasm, decides to help with the restraining order problem by being the go-between while SpongeBob and Squidward work. But instead of providing meaningful support, Patrick's interference exacerbates the situation. His help includes following Squidward around to the point where Squidward might need a restraining order for him too. His help morphs into a series of slapstick moments that make the situation increasingly chaotic. From appearing in the cash register to following Squidward to the bathroom, Patrick is verging on straight-up stalker vibes. Patrick's approach to legal boundaries is less about staying within and more about, let's see how far I can push this. Squidward's legal problem is like a game to Patrick, driving him up a wall just for kicks. His interference could easily be seen as obstruction of justice, or at the very least, an egregious mess-up with a side of harassment. He completely disregards the seriousness of Squidward's request and inadvertently complicates the situation, making it harder for Squidward to achieve the peace he's seeking. If there's any doubt that Patrick's actions in this episode border on criminal, consider this. His interference with legal proceedings is a textbook case of obstruction of justice. Just yikes, man. Add this to his ever-growing criminal record. Buckle up, because here's number 4, The Monster Who Came to Bikini Bottom, a roller coaster of friendship gone awry with a side of rampant destruction and a hefty dose of mayhem. In this episode, Bikini Bottom is introduced to a towering, monstrous creature with an insatiable appetite and a knack for wreaking havoc. Patrick, in all his infinite wisdom, decides that this rampaging beast is the perfect candidate for a new best friend. Because naturally, a monster capable of leveling entire houses is a fantastic friend candidate. And of course, who better to befriend a rampaging monster than our very own Patrick Star? All I can say is, please don't try this at home, guys. Patrick's concept of friendship is pretty warped. Rather than viewing the monster as a catastrophic threat, he sees it as a golden opportunity for a new buddy. Who cares if this monster's idea of fun involves demolishing everything in sight? And speaking of demolition, that's exactly what this thing does. First, it destroys Patrick's house, then Patrick accidentally encourages it to destroy SpongeBob's house, and then Squidward's house joins the rubble rampage. It's a miracle Gary got out, or he'd be snail sashimi too. It seems Patrick's notion of friendly includes anyone who will hang out with him, even if it means encouraging a path of destruction through Bikini Bottom. Instead of running for cover or, calling for help, Patrick instead rolls out the red carpet for his new monster friend. He's practically throwing a party for the creature, and you can almost hear him saying, "Come on in, make yourself at home, just don't mind the shattered buildings." And the result of Patrick's misguided hospitality? Widespread mayhem and utter devastation throughout Bikini Bottom. Property damage everywhere, and all thanks to Patrick's lack of judgment. It's as if he's handed the monster a wrecking ball and a free rein pass. Patrick's reckless decision to befriend and support the monster can easily be viewed as complicity in the mess that ensues. His actions actually aid and abet the monster's destructive tendencies. I don't think this is just a good intentions gone horribly wrong situation. Patrick is the ultimate enabler, letting his new monstrous buddy tear apart the town without a second thought. This is beyond mere negligence, it's a criminal offense in the making. His complete disregard for the safety and well-being of Bikini Bottom's residents turns him into an accomplice in the monster's rampage. Patrick's inability to see the bigger picture and his failure to consider the repercussions of his actions highlight his role in the chaos. In the end, Patrick's ill-fated friendship with the monster bring nothing but destruction and disorder, once again proving that his idea of a good time is often just a disaster waiting to happen. And speaking about a great time for Patrick, but not for anyone else, at number 3 on our list is Pat No Pay, where Patrick Star takes dining etiquette to a whole new level, or rather, a whole new low. In this episode, our neighborhood starfish manages to turn a simple meal into a masterclass in bad behavior and financial irresponsibility. The scene is set at the Krusty Krab, where Patrick, in a move that's less about enjoying the food and more about avoiding responsibility, decides to chow down on a hearty Krabby Patty without any intention of paying. Now, you'd think a starfish who lives under a rock might understand the basics of, paying for stuff, but Patrick's logic seems to run on a different frequency. After scarfing down his meal, Patrick boldly refuses to pay, leaving Mr. Krabs in a state of utter disbelief. It's like if a cat strolled into a restaurant, ate a fancy dinner, and then walked out with a satisfied meow, completely oblivious to the concept of a check. Mr. Krabs, ever the entrepreneurial stickler for the rules, decides to put Patrick to work to pay off his tab. Sounds fair, right? Except Patrick's work ethic is as real as Plankton's customers, non-existent. Patrick's work at the Krusty Krab is a comedy of errors. Instead of contributing anything productive, he manages to turn basic tasks into fantastical messes, much like how a tornado might handle a tidy room. His attempts at working are less about getting the job done and more about creating a series of hilariously unhelpful blunders. Patrick's refusal to pay and his subsequent failings at work could easily be seen as first-class cases of theft and public misconduct. His actions not only disrupt the smooth operation of the Krusty Krab, but also highlight a troubling pattern of disregarding rules and responsibilities. In the end, Patrick's antics serve as a comedic reminder that while he might be a lovable character, his actions, especially when it comes to any responsibility and concern for others, is laughably lacking. We see this clearly in number 2 on our list, Ink Lemonade. Patrick takes a turn that's not just mischievous, but downright unethical. The episode kicks off with Patrick stumbling upon a rather unusual business opportunity, using Squidward's ink to create a lemonade stand. Now, you might be thinking, Patrick, running a business? But this is no ordinary lemonade stand. Patrick figures out that Squidward's stress-induced ink makes for a unique and apparently delicious ingredient, and he's more than happy to exploit this discovery. Is anyone else getting the ick from this? But here's where things get really shady. Patrick doesn't just ask Squidward for ink, he actively traumatizes him to get more of it. Every time Squidward thinks he's safe, Patrick's there, lurking in the shadows, ready to scare the ink out of him. Literally. And what does Patrick do with all this ink? He sells it to the unsuspecting public as a refreshing beverage. Talk about plain unethical. Patrick's complete lack of concern for Squidward's well-being is on full display here. He's so focused on making a profit that he's willing to push Squidward to his breaking point over and over again. This isn't a friend playing a prank, it's exploitation, plain and simple. Patrick sees Squidward as nothing more than a means to an end, and his actions could easily be seen as fraud or worse. Think about it. If this were any other business, Patrick would be looking at some serious legal trouble. Fraud? Absolutely. Exploitation? Without a doubt. And yet, Patrick squeaks by, leaving Squidward to suffer the consequences of his greed. If there were any justice in Bikini Bottom, Patrick might find himself facing a very different kind of lemonade stand. One behind bars. Get ready, because we've gotten to the number 1 position. We're talking vandalism, public endangerment, destruction of property, you name it. The Nitwitting takes Patrick's chaos to a whole new level, solidifying his case for a padded jail cell. Somehow, this idiot stumbles into a secret society called the Nitwits. Now, you'd think a group like this would be harmless fun, right? Wrong. The first thing they do? Hand Patrick the golden urchin, a symbol of leadership that he treats like a shiny new toy. And what's his first act as leader? He leads the Nitwits on a rampage through Bikini Bottom, starting with the reckless decision to remove all the manhole covers in the city. Yeah, you heard that right. They literally yanked them out of the ground, leaving gaping holes all over the streets. Talk about a public safety nightmare. In this twisted club, stupidity isn't just accepted, it's downright worshipped. Who better to lead this band of buffoons than Patrick Star himself? On top of everything he's done, we can add full-blown cult leader to the list. As they parade through the town, Patrick and his fellow nitwits start wreaking havoc everywhere they go. They cause traffic jams, mess with public property, and even send innocent citizens flying into the air after triggering a chain reaction of accidents. At one point, they steal a fire truck and use it to spray everyone in sight with high-pressure water, turning the whole scene into a chaotic, soggy mess. Don't ask me about the logic of how they're in an underwater town and can still get drenched by a fire hose. I have no clue, man. And let's not forget when they decide to climb on top of buildings just because it seems like a good idea at the time, only to cause structural damage as they leap from rooftop to rooftop like a bunch of deranged monkeys. But the true highlight of this episode? The moment when Patrick, in his infinite wisdom, declares that the nitwits should turn off all the lights in Bikini Bottom, plunging the entire town into darkness. This move causes mass confusion and even more accidents as citizens scramble to navigate the pitch-black streets. Patrick's leadership is nothing short of catastrophic, and the town is left in ruins by the time the nitwits are done. It's absolute bedlam from start to finish, and Patrick is at the heart of it all, leading the charge like some kind of chaos-loving Pied Piper. By the end of the episode, Bikini Bottom is a disaster zone, and it's all thanks to, once again, Patrick. If there was ever a time to question whether Patrick Star belongs behind bars, this episode makes a pretty convincing case that the answer is yes. So there you have it. Patrick Star, Bikini Bottom's seemingly lovable goofball, is actually a ticking time bomb of chaos and criminality. From his reckless disturbance of peace that leaves destruction in his wake, to his role as the cult leader of the Nitwits where he spreads mayhem like confetti, Patrick's antics go far beyond harmless pranks. His choices endanger lives, disrupt the community, and damage property, painting a portrait of a starfish who's not just silly, but dangerously irresponsible. If Bikini Bottom had a justice system that took public safety seriously, there's no doubt Patrick would be trading in his jellyfish nets for a padded cell. So next time you watch Patrick's antics and chuckle at his shenanigans, just remember, there's a darker side to our favorite starfish, and it might be time for him to face the music. After all, every great story needs its villain, and in the depths of Bikini Bottom, it's clear that Patrick should be behind bars. But hey, I'm just a guy who likes cartoons.